Well, by 1991, I had already been drugging for 20 years. I was running a car garage whose business was already going down the drain. My life was in total disarray. I had consumed all my wealth on drugs. I was already living a hand-to-mouth existence. Just had enough money to get me by daily. I was no longer relating with my family. In fact, my family had already given up on me, and I was just living alone in an apartment, believing that my garage was going to get me by. Thankfully, that fateful one day that my brother came to the rescue. It was a cloak and dagger affair. They were so afraid of me because I had tools and everything in my shop. But he managed to come in and he deceived me. And before you know it, orderlies trooped in, they grabbed me, they tied me down, and off I went to the basement. Obviously, nobody likes to go to a basement. That was a very almost tragic situation for me. I never thought that I would ever land in a basement. I have a little story about being in the basement that for me became my turning point. I prefer to call it even a miracle. Suddenly I had this idea about praying the rosary, and I never knew how to pray the rosary anymore. So I had to relearn how to pray the rosary and found a guy that would support me, and so we started praying the rosary every day. And I noticed that now it was my turn to lead. I couldn't get 2-3 words into the prayer without bawling like a baby. At that time, I really thought it was the medication. So I remember being really frustrated about it. And this just went on. So the next day we prayed the rosary again. From 2 we became 6, and then we became 10 people praying the rosary. We were praying the rosary every night after dinner. And each time I had to lead, I would start to cry. I never could understand it. I just let it go. I look back into what happened in the basement. For me, that was the miracle. That was for probably some sort of slaying of the spirit. Because after that, it became lighter for me to make the decision to go into rehab and to do the things I had to do. Here I am coming out of the basement, going through the program. I noticed that I had no major problem in going through the program. As a matter of fact, I fell in love with the therapeutic community approach that they were implementing. And so Self was born in 1992. We got a small house. In the 96, we had the challenges of being evicted. In 96, there was a fire that destroyed our whole house. And we moved over to Tagaytay, where we were able to rent another place. And this time we had to rebuild the whole house entirely just to please the owners. This went on for another couple of years before they started to double the rent each time I renewed. The urge to seek for a permanent home was at hand. And I have combed all the areas of Tagaytay, Silang, Cavite, Parañaque, and there was just no place that would accept a rehab. Funny thing about societies, they like the drugs taken care of, but nobody wanted a drug rehab in their neighborhood. So this was really a big problem, and these were the hurdles that I was going through. The rejection, the ongoing rejection from society. And here I was thinking that I'm already a resolved or recovered addict, and still people were rejecting me. So it was really something to deal with. Then one day, there was a chance to visit a place in Talisay, Batangas. It was a beautiful hillside property, but it was downhill, and I just couldn't understand how we were going to build a facility over there. Plus, the road on the way there was all muddy. Building the Taal View house was one of my biggest, most major turning points in my life. I entrusted my entire life and resources into building this facility. And the only thing that was steadfast in my heart was faith. And I remember that month of June 2000, when we inaugurated, our operation was already almost $1 million a month, and we had no money in the bank. And this is where miracles began to happen. First miracle that happened was a good friend who, out of the blue, offered some of his savings, and that seeded a lot of the money that we needed for the month. No? Second miracle that happened was one of our family members who just approached me and he says, "You know, Martin, I had made some money in a deal and I want to share you some of this." And the third, and for me the foremost miracle, was that on that month of June 2000, we admitted 10 potential residents, all in 2 weeks. That has never been heard of in history. For me, that was an answered prayer. For me, you talk about turning points, that's when I realized God's got my back.
Now, 30 years later, I'm still doing this work, and we have been able to build a TC training center right here in our very own compound.
We are all endowed with the gift of independent will. And together with our ability to be proactive, we can make dramatic shifts in our lives. In my case, when I surrendered and put my life in the hands of the Lord, everything else was provided.